dedicated my life to people. I dedicated my life.
You get to go out there, talk about dying a revolutionary death, because you don't have another person growing inside your body.
Anywhere there's people, there's power.
Hi, I'm Janae Lennox, and I am the lead organizer of WestLA4BlackLives. First, I want to start off by a land acknowledgement. I am here in Los Angeles in Chuvas land and Chuma. And while we are here, we want to always pay our respects. And with that being said, we have amazing panelists that will be discussing the movie just a little bit, because we know that not everyone has seen it, but the movie, and then actually the Black Panther movement itself. And then after that, we will have a Q&A where you, the audience, gets to ask our panelists, how they felt and their experience. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to our amazing panelists. First, we have America Patton, and he is a musician and also a teacher and a historian, and he has dedicated his life and his work to actually know little to everything about the Black Panthers. Then we have his partner in crime, Chris Hallwood, and he is also a historian, and he has spent his work in his life doing the work to teach the youth and everyone else about the Black Panthers. Then we have Mohammed, who was a Panther, and at the original Los Angeles chapter at the early age of 17. And then we have Neville, and he is a leader in his own right. He left Jamaica to become a part of the revolution, and he was mentored by Angela Davis and Bob Marley. So the first question we have, and this is really for each and every one of you, is what brought you into the movement, or what made you want to do this work and know everything about the Black Panthers? So any one of you guys want to take that on, that first question?
For me, it was, I was challenged by one of my cousins. He's about 55 years old now. And, he's really deep in the history of the Black Panther Party. He's deep in Egyptian history. So he just always wanted me to learn about our culture. And he challenged me to figure out about the Black Panther Party. And at the time, I had no idea what it was about. I just started researching, and I learned about the Black Panther Party at the fence first. And throughout that, I started learning about different characters, different people that were part of the movement, from the women, the sisters in the movement, to the brothers that were in the movement, to the brothers they never speak about, like Bunchy and John. I mean, things like that. And they started being really intriguing to me as a young man. And so I knew that I had to continue to dig and research and research and research. And I just got so caught up in it that, like, it has me right now to this day. And all I do is sit at home sometimes and I look at documentaries, or I'm reading books, and I'm trying to just figure out how they got started from then to when they were infiltrated, to if it ever wakes up like it's supposed to again, how we can get to that point where we never get infiltrated again, and get to the point where we're neutralized. I don't want to see that ever happen again to the party, because the party was a great thing for a lot of people, and it helped a lot of people around the world.
Yes.
For me, it was in high school. I saw the picture of the Black Panther Party in a textbook, and they were riding around in a Jeep holding up guns. And up to that point, I thought they were a militant group, and I always wanted to know more about them. So when I got to college, at McPherson College, I majored in history education. And before you graduate, you had to present a thesis, an in-depth thesis to the history department and education department if you were a teacher going into education. And I picked the Black Panther Party to do an in-depth study on. So I was around 21 years old at the time. And about 3 or 4 years or so, I went up to Chicago, did my student teaching. I interviewed some former Black Panthers. And then I went up to the University of KU, did research. So I just wanted to know more about what this organization was, because in my mind, originally I thought they were this militant group, but after my research, I found out that this group was really for the people, and they wanted to better the lives of everyday people. So that was pretty much got me involved with this particular work. So I published my thesis, and they bound it in the historical library at McPherson. And in December, I decided to, around November, December, I contacted my college, and I wanted to revisit this topic again because of all the things that have been going on at society with the police brutality, with the young men and women losing their lives. And I said, this would be a great time to maybe have a conversation about the Black Panther Party. And I held that first discussion on January, and I didn't realize that a movie was coming out on it the following month.
Can everybody help me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mohammed.
Okay. My name is Mohammed Mubarak, and it is an honor to be amongst you all. I was 16 years old in 1968 when I met John Huggins. John Huggins was standing outside my high school passing out flyers to promote Eldridge Cleaver speaking at South Park on 51st and Avalon. And he says, my name is John Huggins, and I'm with the Black Panther Party. And I told him, yes, I'd like to be a part of that movement, because I heard so much about the Black Panther Party on television and in the newspapers when they marched on the state capitol in Sacramento to protest the ban of open carry weapons. A lot of people didn't know you could walk around with your weapons as long as they were unloaded. And when they realized there were so many Black people that wanted to do that, these white folks in Sacramento decided they were going to change the law. And these Panthers mobilized themselves and marched on the state capitol, because they had already formed these community patrols where they were driving around to look and see where Black people were being harassed by the police. They would come on the scene with their guns, and they would stand at a distance to make sure that the Black people were being treated right. And they had these guns, and it was intimidating to the police to see these Black guys, pulling up on them with these guns. And this really was a tactic that was being used to intimidate the police, and they didn't like that. So this became a national story when they saw the Panthers march on the state capitol. And I'm telling you, it was the single most event that brought a lot of people into the Black Panther Party. And I went to the rally at the park and saw Eldridge Cleaver speak. And I used to tag along with John Huggins, and he and Erica, they sort of like adopted me. And I stayed in the Black Panther Party. When John got killed at UCLA with Bunchy Carter, that was what really kept me into the Black Panther Party. It made me more dedicated to what the cause was all about. And because I had just come to know John, it was only 3 months that I had became a Panther, that he got killed. So I stayed in the Black Panther Party until the fall of 1970. By that time, the FBI did a massive crackdown on us, nationwide. They were locking Panthers up and killing Panthers, and over 40 Panthers got killed at the hands of the FBI and the local police and the paid agents that they had went undercover and infiltrated the Black Panther Party in an effort to destroy the Panthers. And so, when I watched this movie the other night, it brought back so many memories and so many hardcore memories. I went to a lot of funerals of Panthers. They were friends of mine. We were all young. We were all dedicated to what the Black Panther Party was all about. And, there's not enough that I could say in this short period of time in this group gathering that I could adequately express how I felt about being involved with the Black Panther Party. And watching this movie, I got to tell you guys something. It was really thrilling and really a motivation to see how well they put the movie together. They touched on every part of what we were all about. They didn't miss anything. Can you all hear?
Yeah, we can, and that's good to hear. Neville, do you want to explain your story, because you left your homeland in Jamaica to be a part of the revolution?
Yes, I'm a couple years older than Mohammed. I left Jamaica in 1968 to come to America to go to art school as an artist. But from in the mid-60s in high school, a group of us were very aware of the civil rights movement and what was going on in America. So I knew about Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Malcolm X. So as soon as I finished high school in Jamaica, I went to New York to go to art school. And that's like in 1968, just after the killing of both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. So my motivation was, yes, to come here to be an artist, but at the same time, I wanted to be part of the revolution, the Black revolution, in whatever way I could. Well, in New York, it was more kind of Jamaican scene and, like living like you're still in Jamaica. But I came to California in the summer of 1969 on my 19th birthday. I think 2 weeks after the Charles Manson killing. Decided, like LA, the weather, everything was more like Jamaica. Didn't like the winter in New York. I experienced 68 winter and promised I wasn't going back. So it was too late for me to get into UCLA at the time because I came in the summer. So I took extension courses and then started UCLA in January, I guess the winter term semester there. And this became my big chance now to be part of the revolution, because I didn't have many Jamaican friends here in California. I was basically on my own. And UCLA had a new program, I think started in 69 or 68, called the High Potential Program and the EOP, Equal Opportunity, where they brought Black students from the ghetto to UCLA. That has never happened before. The only UCLA Black people were like Rafer Johnson, Ralph Bunch, Jackie Robinson, super athletes. So this was a chance for Black students to come to UCLA. And Westwood was like, at that time, a little white village with one movie theater. And, it was not like what Westwood is now. And so anyway, I came in as a freshman. I couldn't get into Angela Davis' first lecture class because it was sold out like a concert. People were like sitting outside the lecture room. But I would go and sit outside and listen. I eventually got to do or class, the next semester, I did existentialism philosophy with her. And she was my first kind of motivator. I was like almost infatuated with Angela. I'd be at her office all the time. And the Black students that came in now, we had, maybe there were 300-400 there. And we had a Black Students Union. We had a Campbell Hall where the Afro-American Study Center was. That's where Bunchy, and you know, that's where they got killed. That happened like just a year before I got there. And it happened to be the same year where we had the student lockdown of America, when they killed the students at Kent State, the National Guards. And we basically locked down all the campuses in America. I think that is probably the most conscious period in America for Black students and people. And it's just coming back now because nothing has changed. It's the same thing. What's happening right now, police brutality, all that was happening from in the late 60s when I came here, early 70s. I wanted to be a Panther so bad, but I think I end up being a Panther sympathizer because I was told as a foreign student, if I ever got picked up by the police, I had no constitutional rights. They'd just ship my ass back to Jamaica. I'd be deported. So, you know, I spoke to Angela about that. As I said, I was always in her office. She used to smoke these real strong French cigarettes called Gaudoises. could get you drunk, right? And, you know, I really learned a lot from her, you know, although I was doing philosophy with her, existentialism, I was being motivated by our politics and our ideas. And, you know, as I said, I want to be in the Panther Party. And she said, Neville, you're an artist. You can be a revolutionary artist and be more powerful than picking up a gun. Anybody can pick up a gun and off the pigs. And that set me on the road, which I'm still on right now. And then after the student strike, and UCLA was all graffiti up and stuff, I got my first chance to really do something revolutionary. There were only 7 Black students in the art department at UCLA, including grad students. And I went around and recruited them as a freshman and asked for one of the walls at UCLA, the Northern Wall. And we painted a mural 50 years ago called the Black Experience, which showed the whole history from Africa to that time, 1970. And it's still there today, if you ever go to UCLA. So that was where I got a chance to use my art, you know, to express that. Then when Angela Davis, well, before that, I created the first Soledad Brothers poster. You know, the Soledad Brothers that were, you know, killed in the court up north there in Sacramento. And that was, you know, with George Jackson, Fleeta Jam Go, and I don't remember the other 2 brothers' name. So that's, and then when Angela, there was on the hunt for Angela Davis, I created like the first Angela Davis poster, We Must Free Angela Davis. So that's how I kind of got into there, and then got into trouble by driving around in my old Dodge Valiant with a bumper sticker saying, support your local Black Panther Party. And the cops in Westwood sometimes would stop me 3 times before I got on the freeway and wheelchair. So, you know, that was my kind of introduction, and I became part of the Black Students Union. We created a newspaper called NOMO, which means the magic power of the word. And that paper, we created it on campus, but we also took it to the Black community because that's what it was for. So we take it to all the barbecue shops, the barbers, all, you know, we were in taking something back to the community. In fact, I remember when we did a big center spread of Angela Davis, I went back and saw they were selling them like for $2. You know, down it. So that was really my introduction. So I would say I was a wannabe Panther, but I was definitely a sympathizer. And the only reason was, I guess, to protect my own safety of surviving.
Yeah, that. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and why. Which, bringing up Angela Davis and, you know, other females, I would like for you guys to share how important were the women in the movement?
Big.
I mean, that's anyone. That could be anyone.
You know, you have Kathleen Cleaver. I mean, like Mohammed can name off all the women. You know, Elaine. You know, the woman. Black women always play a very important part in the movement. From times of slavery till Harriet Tubman, you know, I mean, it's like, the funny thing you mentioned that is because I was so close to Angela, and when I created the masthead for No More newspaper, I had Malcolm X in one corner, Angela Davis in another corner, and the brothers said, how come you elevate Angela Davis or, you know, with Malcolm? I said, my explanation was, Malcolm was the voice of the people, and Angela was the voice of the Black people on UCLA campus. So that's it.
Period.
The women in the Black Panther Party played a very important role. And during the time that I was in the Black Panther Party, Elaine Brown was like a big baby. And you had Joan Kelly, you had Joan Ringo, you had a lot of women that played a very important role in the leadership of the Black Panther Party. And oh, I think I lost you guys. Okay.
I hear you.
You guys still there?
Yeah, we see you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I spent a lot of time with Elaine Brown during the time of 1969, because she became the Deputy Minister of Information after John Huggins got killed with Bunchy.
Correct.
And in the Ministry of Information, we did a lot of things. We put together a newsletter that came out twice a month. And I became the Panther photographer.
Wow.
Because I learned photography in the Teen Post right after the Watts riot in 1965. The Teen Post was a place where a lot of young Black people would come to get summer jobs and go on field trips and learn different things like photography and other things. It was a way that the government had set up for Black people to get off the streets. And because they found out that I knew a little bit about photography, I took on the role of photographer. And that required me to be at rallies and different press conferences and take photos at funerals. And a lot of the stuff that I was doing would be transformed into the newsletter that Elaine had put together. And we spent a lot of time down at Central headquarters on 41st and Central, our headquarters. And during 1969, the FBI, I mentioned before, they had a crackdown on the Black Panther Party nationwide. And they were paying people to inform on us. And they had informants that joined the Black Panther Party, became members of the Black Panther Party. FBI agents were undercover, and they were providing the law enforcement with information about what was going on inside the headquarters. They knew what kind of guns we had. They knew everything that was going on inside the Black Panther When I watched this movie the other night and I saw William O'Neill's character being played by Lakeith, it brought back so many memories because there were people that we suspected of being informants, but we didn't know exactly who they were. And but later on, information started coming out about people that were being suspected of being undercover agents. A lot of people got killed behind people like that. A lot of people went to jail behind informants whose job was to provoke and get into the organization and become provocateurs and
agitators.
And having Panthers killing Panthers. And at the end of the day, the Black Panther Party split in two. You had the people that followed Eldridge Cleaver and the people that followed Huey Newton. It was such a bad situation that developed. And the FBI knew what they were doing. They knew that once they got these provocateurs and agents inside the organization, they could do whatever the hell they wanted. They could eliminate certain people. They could cause Panthers to kill Panthers. It was the COINTELPRO operation, counterintelligence operation, was what it was nicknamed. And the job was to cause dissension among the Black Panther Party, and it ultimately worked. You got Panthers that are, or former, that are still in the penitentiary right now that never got out since the summer of '69. You have over 200 of us that went to jail. You still got Assata Shakur in Cuba in exile, that she's on the FBI's most wanted list. It was such a bad situation that developed. But it was the most rewarding experience for a lot of us that were young and dedicated to what the movement was all about. These are days and years that are left behind us that we'll never forget. A lot of women that were in the Black Panther Party that became dedicated. They played a very important role in what we were all about.
And you're looking at women.
By the way, Angela Davis was never a member of the Black Panther Party. She was a member of the Che Lumumba Black Communist Group. A lot of people think that she was a Panther, but she wasn't.
That's correct.
So you're looking at women like Catherine Cleaver. You're looking at women like Afeni Shakur. You're looking at women like Erica Huggins. I mean, those are women that were very influential in the party. I mean, Afeni, you know her story. You saw who she birthed, Tupac Shakur. Her husband right now, Matula Shakur, is still in prison, a political prisoner. So you got a lot of strong, powerful women that were equal to men. And they made sure that even when you look at the 10-point program, it talks about how you cannot, I can't remember the verbiage, but it goes and saying that don't be trying to coerce, like trying to date the women that are in the party. You don't do that. They're your sisters. Look at them as your sisters, not as not as somebody you can conquer. They're your sisters. So they had it set up so beautiful when it comes to equal. A woman was just as powerful as a man in the party. Nobody was more powerful than anyone. It was an equal status. And so looking at that, you got to see the women blossom because intelligence, understanding, and fearlessness, and fearfulness. They didn't fear anything. Mm-hmm. One thing I love about the Panther Party, and as I study, they were fearless. Everyone.
I know too well about that.
Yeah. And for me to look at how beautiful it was to be a Panther, that's what touched me as a young man, to see my sister in the beautiful afros and being in their natural beauty showing, because they were queens and they carried themselves with so high esteem that you couldn't tell them no different. Black was beautiful.
True.
Yeah, it was the Black movement was a movement that was a national movement. Everybody wanted to identify with that, and you know, it spread from coast to coast. And you know, when Martin Luther King got killed, a lot of people got really involved with the Black movement, and the militant part of it, the picking up the guns and shooting back at the police part of it. That's what made the Black Panther Party the single most threat to the internal security of the United States. The FBI looked at us like we were Al Qaeda, like we were terrorists, because they saw that we were armed and we were organized. We had nationwide offices across the country. And wherever we were, we had these programs that we would put together to serve the people.
True.
They knew that we weren't afraid to shoot back at them when they shot at us. That's what made us dangerous to them, you know.
And I want to bring in America to kind of go into how the programs that the Panthers created that I think many people do not know. And so, America, if you could, oh, is he frozen or is it me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Or I think if America could just kind of uplift that of the programs that they created for their community.
Yeah.
The free breakfast tour program, the free clothing programs, these were called survival programs. We had we created this breakfast for school kids to come to certain locations that we'd set up. Before they go to school, they can have a free breakfast, a wholesome breakfast. Because in the community, there was poverty like we'd never saw it before. And this was a service to the community that we provided. We had free health clinics. We had free clothing programs. We had sickle cell program where people could come and get tested for sickle cell. In addition to arming ourselves and defending ourselves against the harassment of the police, and we were under constant threat because of that. Wherever we went, they had us under surveillance. Mm-hmm. They took photographs of us. They had video of us walking down the street selling newspapers. They knew who they were targeting because they had informants that they had planted inside of us that were providing information on what we were doing. So, I mean.
Yeah, and it got to a point where, and another thing the Panthers stood for was political empowerment. And that was another one of the reasons why the party became such a threat, because, you know, they believed in not only just teaching the new Panthers that are coming in, they wanted to teach them about their political rights and also to empower themselves. And in a movie, a connection that I made that was in my paper that I alluded to was when it was in a movie when Fred Hampton was going into the building and he was about to unite with Jeff Ford with the Black Stone Rangers. And the government became even more terrified, because if they would have had forged that alliance, because they had heard that they were about to connect, that would have increased the membership of the Black Panthers, and they would have had more power to determine their own destiny. And that has been one of the continuous trends throughout history, with Black empowerment going all the way back to slavery and before, to not allow for Blacks to have any political power, to have a voice, because then we're able to determine our own destiny. So by any means necessary, they're like, hey, we need to interrogate the party. We need to assassinate key members. We need to, and even to this day, a lot of Panthers that I want to interview in Chicago did not want to talk about it because they were so terrified of what the government did to the Panthers, throwing smoke bombs into their homes, interrogating them. And some of them got out of the party because they did not want their life to be threatened. They were in it for a few months because they were taking out so many of these key leaders. And again, one thing that kind of really touched my soul throughout the movie, and I shed some tears, was the opening scene of the movie. When I heard Rashad Roland Clark's song, he did Inflated Tear. That song that's playing at the beginning of the song, it played continuously throughout the movie. But if you listen to that song by Rashad Roland Clark, that song was written in the 1960s, around the same time the Black Panther Party was there. And if you listen to the whole song, Rashad Roland Clark says, "I know what's going on. Put your hands up." And the jazz musicians were conscious what was going on during that particular period. And Rashad Roland Clark, he was a self-taught musician, and he was blind too. But he was still conscious of what was going on in the movement, and as far as equality and equal rights for the Black Panther Party. And throughout the whole movie, the music that they picked, I mean, it depicted the times. It was on point. I felt like it was very accurate all the way from the beginning to the end. The musical selection was literally like, it really touched my soul. I mean, I don't think it could have gotten any better than the musical selection that they picked to depict what was going on during that particular era.
Thank you for bringing that and lifting that up, because I totally agree that the music, they did an awesome job with that. I know that we have a little bit more time, and this, I kind of want to have the audience participation. So we're going to unmute, or actually we'll have you raise your hand and then we'll unmute you, people in the audience, and so that you can ask our panelists questions, okay? So if you have any questions, definitely just put your hands up. And oh, okay, I see raised hands. All right, I'm going to unmute.
Hi, thank you, first of all, for coming and speaking to us this evening. My question, besides partnering or finding alliances with other Black groups, were there also alliances with, for instance, Latino groups or any Chicano groups during the early times of the Black Panthers?
Yeah, they did have alliances. You had the White Panther Party in Iowa that have provided lots of funding to the Black Panther. And then you had the White Panther Party also in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And of course, in the movie, you saw what Fred Hampton was good at. One of his gifts was that he had the ability to connect with diverse groups, like the Latino groups, just various cultures. And that was another reason why he was a threat, because he had the ability to bring together all different cultures and nationalities. And the government didn't like that, so the Black Panther Party did forge a lot of alliances with different groups, and the White Panther Party out of Iowa provided a lot of funding to the Black Panther Party.
It's true. And I want to kind of expound on that a little bit more in detail. When you're looking at the movie, when you saw them go into the room with the Patriots, you saw the Confederate flag. And that symbol to a lot of us is a hurtful symbol. But however, with Fred being the way he was, he knew that didn't mean anything to what the movement was going and where the trajectory they were heading when you look at the Rainbow Coalition and what they were trying to build, because he understood that impoverished people are everywhere. It didn't matter about color. We all were impoverished. We're always struggling, and we all need to unite and show strength and unity, because there are always strength in numbers. So that's why I think when you looked at COINTELPRO and the propaganda that was being spewed, is because they knew the only way you can tear them apart is by lies and infiltration. So they started writing these stupid manuscripts and these little, I guess you want to call them like cartoons, where they write lies and talk about who did this and somebody's going to kill this person and I'm going to kill you and this person killed this person. So they was spewing a lot of propaganda to try and infiltrate the best way they knew how, by lying on the Panthers.
Thank you so much.
Unmute.
am I? Thank you so much for bringing that up. Like we heard in the movie Rainbow Coalition, that was real. Oh, sorry. Oh, I think you can mute yourself. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I wanted to point out something. Bunchy Carter was leader of the Renegade Slauson gang in Los Angeles. And he had a lot of street credibility. And he was able to forge a coalition of all the gangs and bring them into the Black Panther Party. And we formed alliances with the Brown Berets, the Mexican revolutionary group. And we also formed coalitions with the Students for Democratic Society, the SDS, and the Weather Underground, which was some very radical Caucasian groups that thought in the same direction that the Black Panther Party was thinking. And one of the things that was important for new members to come into the Black Panther Party was to become politically educated. We have PE classes every week that was required of every member because you had to become politically educated in order to understand how the system worked and what your role was in the society. So it was very important to get politically educated. And we studied the Red Book, Mao Zedong's.
The little Red Book.
that was required for every member of the group of the organization to have the little Red Book in your possession everywhere you went. Yes. So the question to the back to the question the young lady was asking about, did we form coalitions? We did, in fact, form coalitions. And we considered ourselves the vanguard of all the other organizations because we felt like we were out front with the movement. And we were, it was evident by the fact that they would lock up so many Black Panthers up and kill us for what we were doing. If you haven't seen the documentary film, The Black Panthers Vanguard of the Revolution, you must see that. Okay? I just thought I'd throw that out there.
All right, we're gonna go to another question. I'm gonna click on you to unmute or ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate just being in all of you like digital presence right now. My question is about today's current movements and just kind of the resurgence of like Black power movements and what you think is like, what is your advice to those movements in terms of security?
Be careful about who you have to become into your. It's hard to really point out whether or not someone's dedicated or somebody that you can't really see if they are working for the police. But you have to be cautious about anybody that comes into your group. At the end of the day, we found out that there were so many people that were suspected of being informants to the police because we noticed that a lot of people went to jail and a lot of people didn't go to jail. You know what I'm saying? It's a telltale sign at the end of the day who may be under suspicion of being working for the police. So you got to keep your eyes open and your ears open. Watch what people say and watch what they do.
Yep, he's right. And I would also say that there are ways now with technology where you can dig into somebody's background. enough to try to figure them out just a little bit. I can't say you're gonna get everything from them because they're really cunning. And even when you go back, they have it on PBS. You can find it on Amazon right now. It's called COINTELPRO. Go watch that movie. If you watch that documentary, it kind of lays out the FBI's blueprint on everything they were doing, everything they did, and how they infiltrated. And what I also learned was that when everything was going on, that person was never around. So if they were involved being an informant, even in the movie when you saw him take his gun, throw it in the car and walk away, all the shooting started, he got out of there. And if you get this watching people around you, whenever y'all getting involved in something, they never there, chances are they're an informant. I mean, that's just being honest, so you gotta, if they're not there when the dust is getting kicked up and they're not around, it's like, wait a minute, where's such and such? I don't know. He said he had to go home. That's a red flag because that's kind of letting you know that they're talking, they're speaking, because again, every movement, there's always going to be an agitator. And especially when you guys are being peaceful. If you even look at the protests that were going around here, it were people that were being planted in the protest, the Black Lives Matter protest, just to be agitators, looters, breaking windows, doing things. They were cops doing this stuff now. So we're looking at how they're doing it still to this day. COINTELPRO still exists to this day.
Oh, yeah. Well, COINTELPRO has been around way before the Black Panther Party got started. Back in the late 50s, when the civil rights movement was getting off the ground, they had the COINTELPRO program in effect. Okay? Even with the Nation of Islam, back when Malcolm X was still a member of the Nation of Islam, they used COINTELPRO to undermine everything that they were doing.
For that question, I think that's definitely important. And I think even in the movie, they touch on what happens in New Haven, Connecticut, and that's how extreme these informants and the FBI were willing to, have people who were so about it and kill other Panthers. I think that part of the movie is a lot, and I definitely think you guys should dive into that because it's pretty.
I'm glad you brought that up because Alex Rackley was suspected of being a police informant. They killed Alex Rackley and later on found out that he wasn't. And a few Panthers went to jail for that. I don't want to mention anybody's name, but there's some Panthers that went to jail for that. And they end up getting off that case. But it was unfortunate that people like Alex Rackley would end up getting caught up and losing their life behind people suspecting them of being with the police. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question from the audience. I'm going to unmute or ask to unmute. Oh, yes, ask your question.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Well, this is Gil Parker speaking. I came in a little bit late on this. And my daughters.
What's up, Gil?
Yeah, hey, Mohammed. It was very, very interesting, and all aspects and subjects you all touched on and everything. You seem I have a little inkling of each of them from the, am I there? Is it on? Mm-hmm. From the music, you can hear me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I don't know, we may have a little glitches here, but from the music to the setting up of the free breakfast programs, to free clinics, to advice for what's happening with the screen? It's moving all over. Anyway, it's distracting me. So with everything that we were able to formulate and put together, and a lot of us, we're all there and we all partaking in it, all the women, the women spearheaded the free clinics being put together. I rode with them to the hospitals for us to get the doctors and stuff like that to volunteer and put their time in at UCLA. And we would go back and pick them up when they don't show up. Because we'd have a line of people out there waiting to do sickle cell anemia and blood pressure, diabetics, children with colds, people with strep throats, all that stuff like that. Then we had to go out and we call it get the equipment to put in these clinics, you know what I mean? And so these are some of the things that the party was constantly on, along with working in the community, and getting the food together and getting the food donated and put in by different companies, Weber's Bread and all these places, so we can feed the children. And not just that, we would go along downtown. They would send the sisters, really. A lot of the sisters, sometimes I'm very bad on names, but Deborah and different ones, and Joan and them, they would go downtown to go to the Board of Education to get the Board of Education to see if they can't fulfill feeding the children at school. We say they're going to school and they're going to be hungry. You go to school hungry, you can't think, you can't focus. And so we used to go there and approach the Board of Education, and they said we had no more funding. We had no funding to do nothing like that. But we said we don't have no money, period, and we're able to make it get done. We're able to go to the egg place and get them to donate so many pounds and pounds of eggs and cartons and feed people in 7 different locations and throughout Los Angeles. How come you can't do it? And the taxpayer is paying you and so forth. So I was right there with those people when they made those trips. That's what I'm saying. And I'm giving them all the benefit because they're the one that did the speaking up. They're the ones that push for it. These sisters that I'm referring to, Deborah and all of them, and Yvonne and some of the other sisters, they're the ones that were there, spearheading some of those things, those programs. There's a lot more I can say. We talk about the music. Oh yeah, we play a lot of Coltrane. We play a lot of oh my God, my brain sometimes, but I'm seeing all of them and I can't say. Rashawn, Roland, Kirk for sure. We wake up in the morning, we'd play some of that stuff to inspire us and all that. And Miles Davis and Nina Simone for sure. Sister Peaches would sing Nina Simone all morning long. She'd be singing in the shower, coming out the shower singing. So we'd have to keep her singing. She might stop after 2 songs. So I had to put a Nina Simone record on so she can sing along and finish off the whole rest of that album and flip it over if we can before we go out into the streets and deal with the people. So that's kind of what life was like, in the Panthers, and it was a 24/7 job every day. It was like, we went with less sleep and everything. And I already was insomnia when I went into the party. So it was nothing for me to stay up all night anyway. That became simple. Sleep 3 or 4, 2 hours and bam, I'm good. And so anyway, there's a lot to say, but I just wanted to interject that. And I was having a little migraine before I came here. That's why sometimes I was kind of like, whoa, I had to stop and try to deal with that. I got some migraines.
But thank you for coming and sharing that.
My daughter made it work on this thing. We've been trying to get on it for days, Babu. I've been trying to call Babu to let him get me on every day, and I don't like to beg or nothing like that. But after 2 times, I said, I'm not calling him anymore. And I found out, I gave some information to my daughter about it, and she made it happen. And she's been doing it for 7 days, 6 days. She's been trying to get it to work. If not.
Well, thank you. We'll definitely take out your information.
I got it, and I took off and came over here.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to ask the panelists, it's up to you guys. We actually have some more time. If you guys want to take some more questions, you can yes or no.
Before we go there, I see a young brother, AJ.
Yeah, he's a next person on the questions. Okay. So we're gonna ask those questions, and I'll have him ask them for you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So but before that, I just wanted to make sure that we are willing to do more time. We're a little over.
I'm fine. Because I definitely want to hear him.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you guys for staying on. It's too good to end, I know. So Ade or AJ, I'm gonna unmute you. You can ask your question.
Hey, can people hear me on this panel? What's up, brother Mubarak? Hey, good to see y'all. I did not know that I was gonna get on here. I respect everyone on this panel so much. You too, my brother Neville Garrick. I'm also a Jamaican. My family came over here in 1955 from Savannah, Lamar, and Mandeville. So I appreciate everybody on this panel standing for Black liberation. But really, my number one question was, what do you guys think with the dissolution of the Black Panther Party, as well as the discovery of COINTELPRO's methods, only the result of social justice movements and direct action of young people and educators breaking into an FBI office. It wasn't like the government gave up this information. It wasn't like a court case happened. People had to act on non-traditional knowledge to be critical. So I wonder what you guys think we should take from that information that they try to bury today.
Well, I'm glad you came on, because you hit the nail on the head. When they broke into that office, they were breaking in to seize draft papers to get people, so they could stop drafting people to that war, to the war. And so when they stumbled on those documents. That was, and that's crazy that they hid it in that area, because they were sharing an office with the I guess it was like armed services. They were sharing an office, so when those guys broke into there, they were able to find those paperwork, and they published it and showed everybody what was going on, because they were definitely trying to bury it. Honestly, for me, when I watched and I read over that, it hurt me, because when we haven't really expounded on William O'Neal. I saw what you said about him, and you're right. William O'Neal was the lowest. It's like, you hear scum. I would say he was lower than scum, because he knew that Fred didn't have no dirt on him at all. They tried to before they assassinated Fred, they tried to assassinate his character. So they were trying to find out if he did drugs or he was doing anything where they can assassinate his character. They couldn't assassinate this character, so they assassinated him. And William gave the blueprint on where Fred was in that house. And they went in with the whole intention of killing, because if they were doing any kind of intel work, you don't kill when you're trying to arrest. You go in to do intel, and you want to preserve life because you want to arrest everybody for the crimes they committed. There were no crimes being committed, but they knew they had to kill, and they wanted to assassinate Fred. And by doing that, they also assassinated Mark Clark. And it's, to this day, it bothers me that this man, William, actually had the nerve to get on Eyes on the Prize and speak as if what he did wasn't wrong. To the point where he ended up killing himself.
You have to understand something about William O'Neal. There were hundreds of William O'Neals across the country involved with the movement, with the Black Panther Party and other movements. And half of them didn't give a damn about what the movement represented. All they were in for was getting paid. That's it. And, William, I guess he had a lot of guilt at the end of the day. When he had that interview on Eyes on the Prize, he had to tell it like it was. And ultimately, it got to him. Ended up killing himself. Okay?
Modern day Judas.
It was too much weight on him at the end of the day. Once he thought about all that he did, and he did it to Black people that was fighting for his rights, putting their life and their freedom on the line for what his rights were all about, he ended up feeling so guilty about it. He had to tell it like it was. I just thought I'd point that out. It was a lot of William O'Neals in the movie.
Definitely.
He wasn't the only one.
Oh, I definitely agree with you, sir. You're absolutely correct. But I guess because the movie expounded so much about what William was doing as a thief, and it kind of broke into the whole narrative of hundreds of William O'Neals, guaranteeing it was all about money. And for him, it was all about the money, because when he found out he could start getting paid for information, you saw that he just kept giving them information, because he knew he can get paid. You are what they call an informant, a paid informant.
Yeah.
What surprised me about William O'Neal is how did he? Oh, I need to unmute now.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, William, how did he get to rise so far up into the Panthers that he was like next to Fred Hampton?
Because he showed dedication At least
but he was already suspected to be.
See, this is the job of an undercover agent. An undercover agent is on a mission.
I know.
Getting paid to infiltrate, and he shows dedication to what that movement is all about. So much so that the people start trusting him and start elevating him into a certain role. You feel me?
Yeah.
He had to play that role. It was a couple of times you saw in the movie where people were suspecting him.
And they jacked him up.
And they were jacking him up, but he had to play that role. Then he got to the point where they started trusting him. Those same people that suspected him began to trust him. You see what I'm saying?
Because he told a good lie.
Yeah.
Also, let's gonna lift up that the average age of a Panther was 19. So we were really they were young. We're young, and I think that's been important to kind of uplift is that like they weren't in their 30s. They were, and maybe more knowledgeable. They were just out of high school, just out of a draft, or a war, I mean. So that I think it plays a part of why they were able to infiltrate and get people to do so.
I guess that's why, like Bob Marley would write, man to man is so unjust, you don't know who to trust. Yeah. Your best friend could be your worst enemy, and your worst enemy be your best friend.
Yeah, and what people are lost on is this. There's during the period of the Vietnam War, you had so many people coming out of the service.
True.
And wanting to join the movement.
True.
And once they came into the movement, they brought with them the knowledge and the understanding that and the experience of fighting in wars.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing how to shoot weapons and knowing how to make explosives and all of that. This is what made the Black Panther Party the single most threat to the internal security of the United States. You had so many Vietnam vets that became Panthers.
That's true.
Okay.
Brother like Geronimo Pratt.
Yep.
Yep. And I mean, it's wow. I mean, this is so refreshing to look at someone who was actually right there in the midst of it all. I'm touched just by being on here with you and speaking with you. I mean, this is touching me as a young man to look at what I've learned over the years, and now I'm sitting here with a historian figure looking me dead in my eye and expounding on things I've learned.
And I want to point something out. Gil Parker, who was just on a few minutes ago, is a former original LA Panther. And he and I were in the Black Panther Party together at the same time.
I'm going to pin Gil.
No, he was in the shootout at our headquarters on Central Avenue. So when you listen to Gil Parker tell the story, you're listening to someone who was actually there when it was really heated, okay? And people's lives were on the line. I just thought it out.
No, and I think this is a good segue to bring in Gil. And do you want to talk about that shooting on 41st and Central and what that was about? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. Hold on. Unmute. Hold on. Let's see why.
Oh, okay. Well.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Mohammed is totally correct, and we both were there together, young guys. He was younger than me, and you are right. The majority of us was in the average age, I guess, was 19, but there were a lot of people there, 24, 25, and all that up in that area. I knew they were older than us. Never knew their age. And we learned a lot from them. From me talking about Bunchy to John Huggins and Masai Hewitt, and those, you know what I mean? Those are people that was educated coming out of college too, and that type of thing. They had been professors or whatever. It's from what I understand when they talked to us, because I used to think they were so profound with their knowledge, what they were teaching us and telling me I'm learning a little philosophy, but they would point me in different directions, Frantz Fanon and different philosophers read Plato and everything. And so I was reading all that. I was trying to take all that in after I got in the party, you know, and reading about different revolutions and so forth. And that's what we studied, and also dealing with the 10-point program. And like I said, I was in there for over two years and about 6 months. I was in the party, and joined in 1968. And my first meeting I went to, John Huggins was running the meeting. I just happened to go in there. The guys dropped me off because I've been talking a lot of mess, talking a lot of stuff, a lot of militant stuff, they considered it. And so they would let me know that, man, you all this stuff you're doing, and you're supposed to be out here playboy, player, all that stuff. You know, you know what? It's time to put my money where my mouth is. And they thought I was calling a bluff. I was like, forget that. Told them to drop me off, pull over in a gray Cadillac. I remember we called it a Blade. I told them, drop me off. And that day I went in there, I never left. Only my mother used to want me to come home. She used to call him every now and then because I don't see my son no more. I told my brother, bring my clothes. And he brought my clothes down. He's about 6 years younger than me. And he brought my clothes, and I never left from that day. From that day, for the next years, I was there every day, all the time. And we put in part in all forms and fashion of sell papers, study the 10-point program. Like I say, hustle up to go get the food for the breakfast programs, and having, you know, landlord-tenant relationship advice for people that come in there to help them out with dealing with the avaricious, greedy landlords at the time. You living in slums settings, you know, decent housing, trying to get decent housing done. And just, you know, these are the things that I remember being along with persons when we were doing this, you know. And I mean, I'm going all over the place, but there's so much, there was so much involved. And at some point I was at 55th Street, and I ended up leaving Geronimo, and we call it, redirected me to have me go to central headquarters. So I was at central headquarters for months before that shootout occurred, and did everything that we needed to do there to help protect ourselves and keep the place in a way where it's that we could defend ourselves, because all the programs and everything we did was so much against what the norm and what society would want us to do. So we had to do those type of things, make sandbags, get them all stacked up. And he had the brothers there that was able to deal with that kind of thing, because, you know, you digging tunnels and you're doing stuff like that, you might be asthmatic, or you have different type of things, you can't breathe properly, you know. And so there's guys that would want to do it, love to do it, but they couldn't last down there long. And so he kept those kind of brothers that could really put forth the work in there, you know. I worked out blistered on my hand and everything. They didn't care. And the blisters went away, and we'd keep on digging and keep on sandbagging and all these type of things.
I just want to jump in. I just want you to just share about how you felt after what happened to Fred Hampton. Up to coming up to like even Fred Hampton, we knew that they were under pressure, because we were getting writing articles about what Chairman Fred and what was going on there in Chicago. And they had the Chicago 7 trial going on with Bobby Seale getting strapped up and tied up and all that in the court, and being gagged and not able to speak. And so this was constant in our papers, and brought up in our meetings, and being disseminated to our communities, you know, let them know what's going on, that we're catching this kind. I think Geronimo and them, they felt the pressure here that we were under, because we were getting constantly harassed. We traveling to everywhere we go, but we got constantly harassed at you could be at any time. You'd be riding and you could smell the police was around there, following the car, or either somewhere or the other. You know, you're out there doing some work, and then they swoop up on you. And in different places, everyone all over the city, we were just constantly getting this kind of a total harassment. Yeah, total harassment, and everyone, we were under, it was going on for months and months on end. You could feel it. It was in the air, you know, you could see it, you're experiencing it. Get guns put to our head, guns cocked, and you get handcuffed and you put in the backseat of the car, and the police on the pig on the right side, or whoever, the one they driving, take his gun out and cocks his 357 Magnum and put it on you. And while they're doing, telling them to hit a bump, so this can accidentally go off, and they laugh and they're having fun with that. But you see the gun is cocked at you. So, you know, it was a little crazy things and all type of things like that was going on, you know.
Yeah. You know,
come back to the office with a lot of stories that they would be letting us know that they just went through, and we all were experiencing it day by day. You know, these type of things. You get just totally abused, get beat down. You know, brother Mims and stuff came back. His eyes was both bloodshot red. They beat the hell out of him, teeth knocked out, all that kind of stuff. So we were all seeing it and experiencing and know what we were under. And that's what I joined the party for, because I was dedicated in all way, forms, and fashion. That's what I was here. I was here to sacrifice my life. That's what I was here for. I said, look, well, I've been talking this stuff from a youngster. I went to segregated schools. I got my bus stoned, going to school as a third grader. Wondered, what did I do? What did we do to do this? I could see the hatred in the people's face when we passed through those towns back east in Maryland. I saw that. I went to Kennedy Elementary, and we passed 12 some schools to get to my school, 68 some miles away, and it used to hurt me every day. And I used to be on that bus thinking, why we can't go to that school? Why we can't go to that one? Why we can't go to that school over there? Why? And they tell me to shut up, sit down, and we sing hymns. That's what we did. And I used to think that was so terrible, but I was at a great school teaching me a lot of great knowledge. The teacher that I always loved in my heart, Mrs. Bailey, she taught us our Black history. She taught us all kinds of stuff to make us feel proud of who we were, because of where she knew that what these kids in the bus was going through, riding to and from school, but mainly going home, especially on a Thursday and a Friday. You pass through a little town that's 2-3 blocks long, and beer bottles is flying and hitting the back of the bus. And the bus driver, our job was to hold our heads down, keep yourself down, don't instigate anything, don't get up out your seat, act like it ain't happening, and we'll ride through in 2 more blocks, we're out of here, and we start singing hymns. And that's how life was for me. And I was a little kid, and that had a big effect on me. Around that time, Emmett Till had occurred in Alabama, where they had found Emmett Till's body because they just had murdered Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was murdered. Well, Medgar Evers, they were there with Medgar Evers and what he was doing for the freedom riders and stuff, and getting the voting rights done. And so that's when Emmett Till was murdered. And so they broadcast that on television, let us know about Emmett Till. And Emmett Till showed up on the jet, just as figured as he was. And I was a little kid, I was going to that same school at the same time. And so it had a profound effect on me, something that never could leave me. And so I could see prejudice going and coming. I was like, my antennas was up. And if you treated someone wrong and didn't treat them kind and friendly, I could pick up on it easy. I could see racism, prejudice actions, and bigotry very easy. I became had a very detective knowledge in my head for seeing that as I'm growing up. You know, I didn't take no mistreatment and no one belittling me or disrespecting me or my mother or my family or anyone else. And we turned our TV up for Martin Luther King, and we did all that stuff. Every time he came on, and a Black person on TV, it was a big thing in our house. And so we were proud of ourselves, was proud of our people. And when I came in the party, I come to find out that I had to be loving everybody. I came in there to tell you the truth, a little more racist. And then they told me, no, it's not about that, my brother. And they showed me in a different way. And that was John Huggins showing me that. John Huggins said, no, it's not about that. It's oppression, and it's about people in different stratosphere of life. And then they're poor Spanish, they're poor Blacks.
So the whole Black huge, and also 80s who were in the movement. And the Kansas City chapter of the Black Panther Party, Pete O'Neill, he's in exile. He's in exile right now. However,
what you know about Pete O'Neill, man?
Yeah, so Pete O'Neill, I met his wife before. I spoke with her briefly, and I haven't met his kids, but I know that they live here in the city. But he was doing a lot of things here in Kansas City with the free breakfast programs, all the way down to tutoring kids and doing so much here in this area. But I thought it was kind of weird that how they somehow they got this felony charge on him got arrested for going across the state line with a concealed weapon. But really, it was just that law went into effect 2 weeks prior to he was traveling. So, I mean, how would he know? You know what I'm saying? So that was just for him to get arrested and get that charge. And I know his cases went to the president before the previous administration. And I know that they've been working to get him free, but literally he's one of those political prisoners who should be free. And I hope,
well, he is free.
He's free, but I would say so that he can come back and forth to America if he wants to. However, but I'm saying, I hope that some of those people, the Panthers who were arrested, I hope that this movie gets the attention of the masses so that lots of these cases can get re-examined and some of those guys can get released out of prison, because this film, I think it has that ability to do that. And if it can get into the hands of the right people, the stakeholders, the policymakers, and those people who are in those powerful positions, and if they can re-examine those cases of those Black Panthers, then I think it'll be amazing if those brothers can get out and have their freedom, because I think that would be amazing for them to be released. I mean,
Well,
it would really.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a brother named Romaine Fitzgerald, we call him Chip, who's been in the penitentiary since the summer of 1969. He's a former original LA Black Panther. He needs to be set free. Every time he goes to the parole board, since 1969, he gets denied. He's got life in prison with the possibility of parole. Okay? They can let him out. He's in his 70s now. Okay? And he's not the only one. There's a whole bunch of political prisoners that they need to let out. Because, I mean, we're all in the fourth quarter of our lives right now. Okay? We're not no harm to society. It's time to let us out. Let us be free. Free all political prisoners.
All and the ones that are in exile.
So let me ask this question.
Oh,
what do we have to do?
Wait. Before we get to that question, there's someone that's been waiting for a while.
Okay.
I want to ask her, have her ask her question, and then we'll get to yours. Okay. Thank you. Oh, where'd she go? Oh, there she.
Was that me?
Walker? No.
I mean, Craig?
Craig? Walker, right? Walker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had talked, Muhammad, I think you had talked about Bunchy being, part of the Slossons. And one thing I did remember with the fall of the Panther Party, you had the rise of the Crips and the Brims, also known now as the Cousins and Bloods. And I was wondering just what kind of correlation, because I had heard many of those brothers that were involved in gang activity in the LA area actually wanted to be Panthers. And so I was wondering if there's some sort of commentary, and specifically, in light of the idea that Fred Hampton more or less wanted to hook up Jeff Ford, which was part of the Disciples, just what that would have meant. So I'm wondering specifically, was that a leadership thing within the Panther Party to more or less lapse and allow, much of that hostility and anger amongst youth to bring rise to the Crips and Brims or Cousins and Bloods that we see now?
Let me point something out to you. The FBI's crackdown on the Black Panther Party was a significant move that the feds made nationwide, and particularly in cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, because they knew that these individual leaders, Bunchy Carter and Fred Hampton, had a lot of charisma and respect in the streets. And they were able to bring a lot of the gang members into the movement and get them to stop fighting each other and become more unified with each other in the movement against the system. And this was the threat that the government considered us to be. And they wanted to annihilate this movement. And ultimately, with all that they did, they were somewhat successful, because when the Black Panther Party split up in two, and after Fred Hampton got killed in Chicago, this left a void. And a lot of these young people didn't have the leadership that they needed anymore. And so they went back to their tribal warfare and started shooting and killing each other. And when the government flooded the Black community with cocaine and other drugs,
Yes,
and able the young people to start selling these drugs at the level that they was doing it,
crack.
It was death and destruction that they spread throughout the community. And the gangs started killing each other over turf, and a lot of their parents got hooked on drugs, and a lot of these parents who had children lost their kids to the system, and their kids became foster kids and all of this. We're still feeling the fallout from that to this day. You feel me?
The Bastard of the Party really expounds on that. It expounds on the whole how the Crips and Bloods came about after the fallout of the Panthers. So if you have never seen the Bastard of the Party, it is definitely a good documentary to watch, because it kind of breaks down what happened after the Panthers were neutralized and annihilated, and what the young people become. Raymond Washington, Stanley Tookie Williams, and a guy named Jamal Barnes. They started the Crips, and it was meant Community Revolutionary Party service. They were still trying to follow
Community Revolution in Progress.
Well, they changed it from Progress. It was Party Service, and then they changed it to Progress. But because they didn't want them to use Revolutionary. Yeah, they didn't want them to lose Revolution, so they made them switch it to what it was. But they were looking to do that, but like you said, when the drugs were flooded into the community and they started selling drugs for profit, it all went left. And then they were running around in different areas trying to recruit more Crips. But a guy, I forgot what his name was, he was in Athens Park when Jamal came up, and he ended up knocking Jamal out. And that's when they made him hot on the rooftops. And so the guys was like, we caught these roofs, we're never hopping them again. And that's when they became the Brims, and which we know as the Bloods.
But the bottom line to this is that in the process of this happening, it took the attention span from the revolution to something else. The young people's attention went to something else, and it got to the level where it's way out of control. Thousands or hundreds of thousands of people have got killed by murder or by drug overdose or by neglect. I mean, the community got, and it was a nationwide situation. From New York to LA, from Washington State down to Texas, wherever there were Black people, they took the minds and souls of Black people and put it in a different direction, away from the revolution. You see what I'm saying? That was the tragic thing about that whole thing.
Well, it was genocide for us, and they knew. And the FBI, like somebody just said, the FBI wanted that, and so that's why they never really tried to. The war on gangs was not really a war on gangs. They tried to say that they would have. They started a group called Crash and all that. They weren't trying to stop the gangs from killing each other. They wanted that, so they knew exactly what they set out to do with COINTELPRO. It actually happened, and now it was genocide going on in LA at a very high level, and then it just spread like wildfire through the whole country.
The mandate
all
of J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO was to stop the rise of a Black Messiah.
Yep.
That's why they titled this film Judas and the Black Messiah. But they looked upon Fred Hampton as that guy in Chicago that was the guy that could bring the whole community together. You see what I'm saying? And you know, I mean, oh Lord have mercy.
That's why he was.
That's why they killed Bundy.
That was the reason why they assassinated him, because of his great leadership and it's great bringing together of people as a whole, you know, of all races and stuff. That's one of the reason, you know, that's what you find, and look at our community has come together. All our communities was strengthened, and then they dropped the atomic crack bomb on us. They dropped that bomb, came in, boom. Nobody went to the coast, brought it and dropped it on ourselves. It came in our neighborhoods, and it permeated all over. In every area of LA I went, I lived all over LA, and everywhere I went, so the fellas that even sell a little bud told me, man, I'm doing this now because they're coming after it like a rat after cheese. So that's what they did to us. And they turned out the neighborhood, and this is what they do to Black people's communities all the time throughout history, pulling the rug against us, and like Malcolm said, drop the Plymouth Rock on your head. And so here it was again, we were like on a treadmill, going back in the same thing. Times here in this day and time, I wonder I see things in systematic racism. You wonder, where are we at? Is this 1920, or are we in 1895? Where is this? You know, if we hear some behaviors and the things that you can see, you can correlate it to that time and those things. And that's what they did, decimated our community, and the gang formulated to structure themselves to make their money. And you know, because they're being disenfranchised as it is. And so that right there just pulled the fabric of the community apart.
And that was another thing that they do too. The FBI, we mentioned that, but another one of their tactics was to drain all their bail funds, to drain, make sure they have no funds going into the organization. So economic slavery in a sense. So they had to figure out a way to get the money out of the hands of the organization. So make sure they can't bail themselves out, figure out where their funds are coming from, and then keep them in pretty much disarmed so that they can't really unite. Because it's like, man, they figured out a way to have an economy. So now the FBI has another tactic. We need to figure out a way to make sure they get locked up and they can't get bailed out. We can't have other members bailing out.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that they then took everybody's attention span away from the movement and got everybody.
Panthers, but speak up for everybody. Sorry. Yes. So Stokely Carmichael, you know, he would come and show up after college. He would come and rescue you. He found out you're in some trouble. He would come and try to figure out what's going on, fly into the city, fly into the town, and help you out. And that was a beautiful thing, because now you got mentoring happening, you know, and now we got that new thing happening, you know, mentoring the older generation, mentoring the younger people coming along. And you don't think they didn't see that? You know, you had some of the older Panthers mentoring some of the younger guys coming in and teaching them a better way. And now today, you know, mentoring is kind of like, you know, kind of common now, but back then, you know, mentoring wasn't, a lot of people weren't really mentoring a lot, but the Black Panthers were doing that. They were mentoring in the schools, you know, when they were the younger in the community. They were mentoring the people in the community when they were about to get arrested, patrolling our own neighborhoods, you know. And you're talking about mentoring people, you're passing down history, you're passing down the knowledge, and you teach people how to be free. That right there is amazing, but that was a threat to the government because they did not want Blacks to be liberated and to be free. So they had to stop that communication, and they also had to stop the funds flowing to try to keep them in a sense of economic bondage. And if you can try to keep people in an economic bondage, and they try to do that today too, to a certain extent, but is not really working because now we got a lot more people in political positions that are in a powerful position now, not enough. We got a lot more women rising to power, and we have a lot more men rising to power. And that's why W.E.B. Du Bois was like, look, hey, you know, we need to get, you guys got to have some political power to have a voice, because your voice is your most powerful tool, your voice in your mind. And the boys were like, look, you have to get some sense of power, you know, and Washington was like, okay, there's work, you know, you can go to work, there's value in every dollar in a sense, and education is great, but it doesn't just stop with education. It also has to go a little bit further. That's why a lot of people are still afraid of like politics. It's like, oh, I'm afraid. There's like a fear behind it, because I think that if you get involved in it, then you're not really being honest, you're not being truthful. No, there's some people that are in leadership and powerful positions that are very, they have integrity, they have virtues, they have character, but it goes back to that fear, and putting fear into a person. Like if you do rise to power and you are a Black or a minority, then you're considered a threat and you may be targeted. So now that's kind of when I started teaching a Black history program at Washington High School and a racial and ethnic studies course, I was no longer just a regular history teacher. I was almost kind of like in a sense, a radical in a sense. Like, okay, you're teaching African American history. You got the textbooks in a classroom and you're teaching this as a course. So, you know, and people start calling a classroom from different schools in a district. They let you teach that there? Why? Because it's a fear that if you teach your history, then you're going to be looked at and viewed as a different individual, or more like a radical. You're no longer part of the in crowd. Now you're kind of like the one who's trying to go against the system. But really, I was just trying to teach people an accurate history and trying to not tell them lies, because if my students grow up and they go into a world that's diverse and they don't know how to interact with different cultures and different nationalities and haven't been taught the true history, we're going to go backwards and they're going to repeat history. So if we don't do a good job of teaching an accurate history, and I'm so thankful that we got the elders on here today, you know, making sure everything is flowing right, because that's what we need. They didn't want this conversation to be happening today. We got the elders, we got the young, you guys passing information down to us, and then we pass it down to the next generation. But it doesn't just stop with that. We have to go a little bit further, and we have to put ourselves in a position of power so we can mobilize.
So here's a thing though, America. I got a question for you. When we're looking at the political structure that we're facing right now, because again, like the brother said earlier, I think it was Gil, we are right back in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 50s right now. And it might not look the same, but we are facing the same systemic racism that we've been facing way back then. It's right back in front of us again. So what do we do different that they didn't do that'll put a structure together so in place it'll never fall flat like it did when it was infiltrated?
One of the things that Huey P. Newton was really good on, he's like, know the law. Mm-hmm. You know the law, because like I tell the students, you know, carry the Constitution around with you, United States Constitution, your Bill of Rights, you know, and one of the things that they would have them do, they would have them carry around their rights. The Black Panthers would tell people, because a lot of them didn't really know their rights. And if we can teach people to not just be educated, but to know their rights and to also understand law, I think that will help stop repeating history, because now you can speak back to them like, look, you can't tell me this. This is the truth. And you can tell them like, look, and if you do break that law, then you know what? You're subject to being arrested. Because if a person doesn't know the law, then it's like repeating history. They were taking advantage of the Blacks that didn't know the law, that weren't really educated, because they were like, see, it goes all the way back to slavery. Like the more education we get, the more power we get, the more we know the law, you know what I mean? Because you're like, you know what? I can contact the local law office and if we don't know, hey, let me call a lawyer and ask a few questions about this. Let me get information about this, because they did not want Blacks to be educated. And then on top of that, they don't want you to know the law. because then you can empower yourself. Then you can create policies. You can create change. You can help get amendments added to the Constitution.
Well, you know, as an ex-police officer, I mean, clearly they don't want you to know the law. When they found out that I was more of a militant officer and I was for the people, they got me out of there so fast. I've never been out of a job so fast in my life. Once they knew that I was for the people, and I mean, I'm for the people, all people, and I was for right. So if I saw anything corrupt going on, I didn't stand for it. And when I've never been removed out of a job in my life until I became a cop.
Thank you for raising those points and thank you all for being here. I wanted to ask, you know, especially the elders, one last point before we wrap this up. And basically, what would your advice be to young activists and organizers like myself and a few others in the audience? What advice would you give us right now to push us forward in this forever struggle?
What advice would I give you is this. Whatever you get involved, be dedicated to it. Put your whole heart and soul into it. And don't be afraid to put your life and your freedom on the line for it. And if you're not going to be serious with it, stay at home and watch TV. Okay?
I agree.
And, you know, or find something else to do. You know, don't play around with it. Get fully engulfed in whatever you're fighting for. And be careful about who you have to work with you. That's very important. I don't know what else to say about that.
Oh, thank you. That was a great, Neville, do you want to add? Especially when it comes to the arts.
Well, every man has the right to decide his own destiny. You know, so yeah, you have to be committed to the struggle if that's what you want to do. Full commitment is not no if or but, it's like straight ahead and you make the sacrifices necessary. What I found out, like, I work with people, but I've never really liked to join organizations in the sense that the strength of your organization is as strong as your weakest link. It's like a chain. So I'll always support and advocate. But if it's a thing where I'm gonna pay dues every week or something like that, you know, where it becomes like a cult thing. So, you know, if your purpose is Black liberation, the first thing you should know is your history. Because one of my issues is that the great history of Africa is the empowerment that we need. If your history starts with slavery, you're not going anywhere. And there's too much emphasis on that. We have to go beyond that and know that we are kings and queens and emperor, and we really did rule this earth. So, you know, like everything we create. So Black people have to reclaim that now. And I feel very proud that this generation of young people finally seen the light. And the reason that happens is that they're facing the same struggles that we faced in the 70s. Nothing changed, nothing strange. It just have a different facade. I mean, like, if we didn't have 45, you would think everything is hunky and dory in America, but the real racism really rise up. 74 million of them. So the struggle continues. So Black people, you know, my message is for my people, but it's for all people, that we have to come together with a commitment and make that sacrifice, because nobody going to do it for us. Freedom isn't free. It's something you have to fight for.
That's right.
Rastafari.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. And Carol, do you want to add? Yeah, unmute. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you. Just
yeah.
what would you like to, what advice would you give to the young activists or organizers now?
For me? Yes. What I was thinking is that still, in regards to all of us as people, and Black people in particular, we need to come together more and not be putting each other down and criticizing each other, and maybe work with the right coalitions or groups that are helping us, that were willing to, push forth that kind of progressive type of thinking and things to get rid of the systemic racism, that people that we can join hands with that will expose these things that occur. I have a thing where a family member was trying to get us the rental thing to help you get a rental form to help with the rent when the COVID was coming in. Went to the exact place and everything, and the people on the inside wouldn't let him in and told me at the wrong place, And make a long story short, until a janitor came along from outside and said, well, wait a minute, this is where I got it. Let me see. And he opened the door and walked in, and the three people that were in there shooing him away, telling them that you can't get that form here. The form was inside there. And then to know that the other people that exposed that place, it wasn't necessarily was Black people, but it was a white person that ended up exposing that place. So you have to have those coalitions where they come forward and change that up and took that out of their hand, so they don't manage that no more. Because they were there going to practice racism against every Black people that came along. We don't have that to help you. We don't have that, we'll pay you at the wrong place. And the person kept going back outside, checking their phone, everything else. And this is the address, this is the location. So you got to still form a coalition with the people. And of course, like Mohammed said, with the right people, and you could be able to feel it and know it in your senses and in your soul and your heart, that these are people that are also down for you in some way and go by their practice. And you don't just judge somebody by just seeing them. You got to see their action and all that too. That's what I'm saying. You can't just be a person that raised a child that is picking on some other kids and think that it's all right because they're showing that they're badass. That kind of thing like that. So that's not a good thing to be doing. You got to show them how to be right and get along with people. And those evil people will first come to the surface.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Is there a way where we could exchange? I would love to talk to Gil offline.
Yeah, we'll email you, and we've been reaching out to them on the side, so we'll get you all that information.
Who said
but
I said it, sir. Christopher.
Yeah.
Oh, my side. My side, yeah, that's my brother right there. You are, yeah, man. I've been seeing you. Yeah, but see, I see a few other people here too that we're rubbed elbows and stuff. A lot of this I think is great that we're doing. And I'm just going to ask you one little question real quick. Are we going to be able to view the movie Judas and the Messiah? Are we going to be able to view that movie here on this?
Oh, not on this. We had a viewing before. The movie's now out on HBO Max.
My son saw it yesterday, and he what do you call it? I guess I don't know these technicalities on the computer that much. Bootlegged it or something, and he got it to come.
It was a pre-screening.
It took him 7 days to do it. He fought.
It was
a code for him to do it. I was trying to get a code for him to do it, and I couldn't get a code from nobody. Then no one called me back to help me. So I told my son he got it done and was able to see it by himself privately with his girlfriend. And only critique he gave on, he said that they didn't show in the speeches, that Fred Hampton's speeches wasn't
wasn't strong enough. He thought that what he saw in real life, because he studied Fred Hampton's speech when he brings it up on YouTube and what have you. He says that he felt that they should have been more hard hitting, but he did it for this era today, so as not to disenfranchise people, I guess, that go to the turn them off. But he said Fred Hampton, he felt, spoke even much harder on some of these issues.
They're pretty hard in the movie.
That was the only critique. I mean, I'm not lying, so I'm gonna tell it. I might be getting in trouble. Warner Brothers might hate me if they don't.
So what?
It's a fact, and that's what he did. And he tried hard because that's where his head is at. And he wanted to see it, and he couldn't see it at no premiere nowhere. And he kept doing his computer over and over and did everything. And he finally it happened yesterday. I didn't get to see it though. I'm down here. I still haven't seen it.
It was a pre-screening yesterday. And so, but right now it's actually out on HBO Max. Yeah. So anyone can actually go and watch it.
I saw it early in the morning around 7 o'clock.
Yeah. So anyone can go see it now. It's really worth the watch. And I want to thank each and every one of our panelists and sharing your stories and your wisdom to so many of us. If you follow us, actually, before I even say that, I know America and Chris, they have a series that they are doing on Facebook about the Black Panthers. So to even dive in even more, follow them. We will put their info in the chat, maybe. But please follow them and to get more information. Also us here on West LA for Black Lives, we will also be having more of these discussions, panelists, and doing more work. So please follow us on West LA for Black Lives, and thank each and every one of you guys for just continuing to give your wisdom so that we can continue to do the work. We're forever in this struggle. Black power.
Black power.
Power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Janine, and the rest of the panel. Alex, thank you, guys. And yes, very incredible to the whole team and David behind the scenes. And it's been an honor. And I look forward to the work of reconciliation. And those of you guys who are looking forward, John Hope Franklin 12th symposium, annual symposium in Tulsa, Oklahoma this year, May 26th to the 29th. And I believe they give scholarships to teachers and people who are doing work in the community. So go to John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Center from May 26th to 29th. I believe Cornell West is one of the keynote speakers, and also a woman who from the caste system book that came out, one of the keynote speakers this year. And this year we can do either virtual or in person. So John Hope Franklin Center, Reconciliation.
Well, good to meet you all.
Thank you. And also thank you to my team, Margie, David, Karen, Alex, Ben, Patty, all of you guys, also to Eden and Allie. Am I missing anybody? I probably am. And everyone and our partners at Melnitz and Civil Wellness Partnership. Thank you guys so much. And I hope you guys have a great night.